Okay, half a day, everyone. Welcome to EMC Squared's second episode of our advisor series. Before we get started, I would like to warmly welcome our guest speaker for today, Dr. Badowski. Just a short introduction, Dr. Badowski is an associate professor of mathematics, a leader of Biostatistics Core for the Pacific Island Partnership for Cancer Health Equity Program, and involved in many research projects addressing health disparities among Pacific Islanders in Hawaii, Guam, and neighboring U.S. Associated Pacific Islands. So without any further ado, we thank you for coming, and I would like to present Dr. Badowski.
Thank you so much for presentation, and thank you for inviting me. I always feel bad because I don't know the math majors anymore, because usually I don't teach like either calculus or anything. So I'm really glad that I am able to join your club. So I wasn't sure what I'm supposed to present. So I don't know. If it's not what you had in mind, please forgive me. But I tried to put some information about what I'm doing and how I work with the students. Okay, so a little bit more about me. So I have a master's degree in statistics, but actually my PhD is in applied mathematics. And I joined UOG in 2006. And we love Guam. We love pretty much everything about Guam. We love hiking, swimming, kayaking, diving. So this is actually pre-COVID picture from the hike to Mount Sasalagwan. Cabrini knows the mountain. With maybe you recognize some of your friends from previous years, math majors. So those are some of the grants that I'm involved with. I'm not going to read this, but I will actually go over some of them and ask what students work with me and what we've done. So one of the big grants that I'm involved with is the BIPCI grant, they call it now, so which is U54, it's the grant from NIH. And in general, all the grants that I'm involved with, they are kind of about the health disparities. So it could be cancer or could be cardiovascular. Somehow I got involved with helping projects which are about the health issues. So maybe slightly different than maybe what we are used to. So this grant is the partnership with University of Hawaii. So all the projects that we have, they have leaders from both Guam and Hawaii. We have students from Guam and Hawaii. We have meetings on both sides. So the focus is on cancer health disparities, and especially focusing on the Pacific Islanders. This is a big grant, but it has many projects. We do projects about betel nut, the breast cancer, cervical cancer, liver cancer, but also like health information and outreach to the community. So the purpose is to gain more information about Pacific Islanders, but also work with the communities. And the other goal of the grant is, of course, to increase the number of cancer and biomedical science researchers of Pacific Islander ancestry. So my role on the grant is I am the leader of the Biostatistics Core. So the aims for the Biostatistics Core is we pretty much provide statistical collaboration support for all the projects. So any project that is funded by U54 grant, we help. There's also something it's called the Outreach Core, and also we have the students and trainees. So it is slightly maybe different than, again, maybe what you're used to from like your other projects that you might be involved with. It's more like when you work with me and work on the project, it's more like really job. It's not like you pursue your own research or like you're helping, you always work with the teams, with other people, and you do what they need to do to finish the project or to write the manuscript and so forth. So the second aim is to actually build capacity for the biostatistical support at UOG and University of Hawaii. So we do seminars. For example, like yesterday I was doing seminar on logistic regression. We do mentoring for the students and so forth. The other aim is to actually curate data resources to actually monitor health disparities. And so there are sometimes there's data which is collected, but quite often people don't know about this data, or they don't know how to access it, or it's not clean, so it's hard to use. So this is what we do. For example, like recently we are working on BRFSS data, which is collected on many years on Guam, but is not really published, or people don't have access to it that much. So we are working on this one. And final aim is actually to create the platform for storage and sharing the project data and documents. So U54, this is actually the first cycle, like 5-year grant, and we've been successful. So we are getting it like for the first time. So there are now lots of data sets from previous years. So if students want to use it, we want to again have the storage place for it. So exactly as I said, so we in Biostatistics Core, we provide like all the statistical support in all phases of the project. So even before people start collecting the data, we advise them what should be the proper sample size. We do the power calculations, what is the proper data collection, or if they need to do, for example, like if they have a randomized control study, then we do randomization schedule. And then we also like help with data management, for example, creating the database, the data entry, data cleaning, and then of course, data analysis, selecting appropriate tests, the models, and actually performing that data analysis for them. Sometimes we actually even help with data collection, but not too often. It's quite a tedious task, so luckily we don't need to do it. And of course, we do statistical programming and interpretation of the results, creating the tables, writing manuscripts, and so forth. And those are just some people who work with me throughout many years now. Some of them you might not remember because they were way behind before you. So one of them, for example, was Yan Dai, and she finished her PhD at University of Arizona, and I think she is faculty, I forgot where. And then Grace, I don't have follow-up for all the students. Then also there was like Brian Simsiman. He covered some papers. He worked as an actuary. Now I think he's applying for Navy or somewhere. And then the other person who worked with me was Alicia Yamanakas. She actually got her master's degree in public health program with biostatistics. And first she was statistic consultant for another grant that we got at UOG. And now actually she works as a statistician in the health department in Seattle, Washington. Then James Wren, he's working on his PhD at University of Tennessee. Imar Aldana, he worked for us many years as an adjunct faculty, so you might know him. Now I think he's moving to California. Mark, he is now working at UOG. He finished his master's degree and works for UOG with the SVP office, doing the analysis of, I think, retention data and assessment data. So also works as a statistician. I'm not sure what Kevin is doing right now. As an offshoot of U54 grant, there was another P30 grant, which again was from the University of Hawaii. And what was interesting about this grant, we did something which is called respondent-driven sampling. So this is the sampling that uses the theory of Markov chains, which is like from the probability theory, that you actually, people recruit each other, but we use the special coupon system so you can actually see who recruited whom. And then, yeah, exactly. So you like on the picture, you have this like recruitment chain. So starting from just one person, it just grows, and we can analyze the social connections. So it's kind of pretty neat. And also you can see like even the geographical, spatial, like again, you're starting from one person, it pretty much, it covered the whole island. So it was pretty neat to see like who would recruit whom and analyze all the data like this. So those are the people who work on this, Louise, Janessa, Jason, and Tia, and actually be presented at SIT-OG workshop in Tokyo. And the current U54 assistant is Louise Dulana, and she just finished her master's in statistics, and now she is working as a full-time research analyst at Oregon Health Authority. She's working with children and adolescent mental health disorders. And then Rodney Teria, so he's actually on the picture looking like Superman. So he got his master's in statistics from Ohio State and now works on Guam for the Pacific Federal Management. I didn't ask Rodney, but I think I can share the stories. Actually, what happened, we had like full-time position for statistician at UOG. And Rodney wanted to like switch over to UOG and quit his job. And then they said, well, how much do UOG is offering you? And then he said, I don't remember now. And they offered him like 10,000 more. So he stayed with Pacific Federal Management. But pretty much what I'm trying to say with this little story is that it's actually a good field to be in. There is huge demand for people who know who do data analysis. It doesn't have to be in health. It could be like Rodney in industry. So the other people who are working currently is also Christian Eisen, and he is now applying to some grad schools in statistics or data analysis. And Dwight Sablan, he's not working with us anymore, but he was with us last year. He's a graduate student at the University of Washington. I think he got full-time position at Amazon. So of course we cannot offer as much money as Amazon. So he quit. And we are doing lots of different types of research, working with Guam Cancer Registry data, with the SEER data, which is like national registry data for the cancer. They work on incidence, mortality, survival analysis, using Poisson regression to compare the rates. And as I mentioned, respondent-driven sampling, the structural equation modeling. So we use a variety of different statistical approaches, and people pretty much get training on the job. So if you start working with me, even if you don't know the stuff, that's absolutely okay. We just work together. And sometimes I also need to figure out stuff. It's not like I know everything. So sometimes what I do, like ask them like, oh, I don't know like how to do this. Maybe you can guys figure this out. And most of the time students are great and they just figure this out. And they co-authored many abstracts and publications. So another grant I'm involved with is U24 grant, is another NIH grant. And this one is actually about the cardiometabolic diseases. It's both on Guam and on Ponape. We also got money to go to Palau, but because of COVID, we're not able to. But we were able to collect the data from Guam and Ponape, so now we'll be analyzing the data. So it was actually a picture from Ponape when we were doing the data collection, and I was doing like the training for the students in Ponape about the data entry and analysis. And also like Louise and Russ and Rodney Charlotte, they were like volunteers. So quite often people work not on just one project with me, but many projects. There's lots of like crossover. The other grant I'm involved with is BUILD. Actually, right now I don't have any BUILD students, but maybe you've heard about this. It's the undergraduate research training program. And again, it supports students if they want to become the scientific researchers. So the students that I mentored before were Regina and Jaylene. And Regina, they both graduated. Jaylene, actually, she was an engineering student. I think she now works as an engineer on Guam. And Regina, she actually is at the University of Washington, but also she got a position as a data informatics consultant on another like CDC grant, which is Pacific Islands Against Cervical Cancer HPV screening project. And they work again on many different projects like SVI, which was calculating the social vulnerability index for Guam. It was another quite interesting project. We got a grant from the like, hazard office in Colorado. And they also work on this cardiometabolic risk factors. Quite often happens that I'm not directly the mentor for the students, but other mentors ask me to help them with analysis. So one of them was, for example, Chelsea Pama, and she worked on the sexual harassment and assault survey, which was done not only on Guam, but pretty much on all the campuses in Micronesia. So it was very rich data. And actually, Rodney and Louise, they were hired as statistical consultants for this project. So it was also kind of neat. And the most recent grant is the CDC grant. We just started working on it. People are doing the data collection to nursing students. And my current research assistant for this grant is Cabrini and Michael. Thank you guys for joining. So they just started working on creating the database in SPSE, SPSS, and coding all the variables, and then we'll be doing data entry and analysis. So they also advise students about like going to graduate school, but also I have some graduate students both from UOG and Hawaii. I'm like the member of the thesis committee. And quite often I'm asked by other faculty members for some ad hoc statistical consultations. And sometimes it's quick, but sometimes it's bigger. So sometimes people sometimes I have students who volunteer and they kind of do work for free just to have experience, but sometimes other projects have money. So for example, like Dwight Sablan, he worked on the project, which was Dr. Tanisha's project, and about some nutrition program for the elementary school kids on Guam, and he did the analysis and the manuscript writing. So pretty much I almost always have some kind of project, some kind of data. So if anyone is interested in having some hands-on experience with data analysis, please let me know. So for the future plans, we really plan with Dr. Leslie Aquino, the chair of the math department, to develop the master's in applied statistics, because there is really need for it. I think on Guam, we need more people who have background in statistics. And of course, we are applying for more grants. And one of the projects that I have in mind would be like a spatial analysis, like GIS for the cancer data. So I think that's all what I have. And so, as I said, like you guys, I'm pretty sure you have my email. So if you're interested or you have more questions, of course, you can ask me questions now, but you can also contact me. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Badowski. We are now opening the floor for questions. Okay, so I have a question, Dr. Badowski.
Sure.
So out of all the projects that you are participating in, what is one interesting fact that you managed to research on?
So, well, actually, it depends what you mean by interesting. So there are many interesting facts which are not mathematical. Like, for example, like we are doing research project on betel nut chewing. So betel, we are still checking, there's actually association between betel nut chewing and the cancer. But also like other factors, like, because pretty much like before we started doing research, there was not much research about Pacific Islanders. Like the data wasn't even collected, like the cancer data. So now we are finally collecting all the data, so there's more information. So I'm learning all the time, because quite often when I'm involved with the new research, so what I like about being statistician is that you get to work with so many different topics. So you work not only about like math statistics, but also like other topics. Like I didn't mention this, but like long time ago, I worked with a guy, archaeologist, and he had me with data analysis. So what he was doing, he was working on in Philippines on pottery. And so he did like, I don't know, now like chemical components. And by analyzing the chemical components, you can actually determine whether the pottery comes from which data, like clay source it comes. So he was able to trace, well, did people like 1,000 years ago, did they communicate between Cebu and some other Philippine islands? So it was fascinating for me because I didn't know anything about it. So quite often I'm learning like new stuff about like other areas. But in terms of mathematics, the most interesting, most fun for me was this respondent-driven sampling project, because it applies like Markov chain theory. And actually my dissertation was in stochastic processes, Markov chains. So it was connected and it has a neat applications and you can do lots of analysis with it. So that was, I think, the most fun for me. But as I said, like what I like about it is like being involved with so many different projects, different topics, different people. So like you never get bored.
Or I have a question, but off-topic comment. I think I remember seeing the betel nut flyers posted on like the agriculture building.
Yeah.
But for my question, Dr. Badowski, how much like foundational research do you have to do for like the topic before or like for when you perform analysis?
So no, I'm not expert on any of the right. So it's not like I need to suddenly become biologist or I need to become archaeologist now or chemist or any like no, don't get me wrong. No, I don't know anything like this. So it's really cooperation. So if I need to do the data analysis, well, of course, like sometimes I need to get better understanding, because even anytime you're doing data analysis, the first step is like data screening, right? And remember, even I told you, Kathleen, like, well, the first thing you need to do, like you just really look at your variables and even just do basic descriptive statistics, because even like to understand what is outlier, right? Like if it's reasonable outcome or not. So for example, like once I was analyzing some metabolic data, so it was like blood pressure, sugar level, cholesterol level, and I don't know anything about it. and I was like cleaning the data, and then suddenly I have like this really, so I was calculating z-scores and something, like a z-score like 7. Like, is it possible? So I went back to data, and then I was asking my poor husband, his physical therapist, like, is it possible to have a sugar level this, right? Because like, if I don't know, I cannot judge if it's like legit data entry, or there was some kind of mistake. So then, but if I don't know, I just ask other people on the team, right? So it's not like I really need to know like histology of cancer, but of course, if you're working on the project, you need to learn certain things. Like for example, like you can ask Louise and Rodney, right? Like they needed to learn, because we are doing the incidence rates for the cancer. So there's like coding, so each cancer is coded differently. So they needed to learn like, okay, what this code means, what type of cancer, how to, so then when they need to write statistical code, they need to actually learn, I mean, not by heart, but they need to check it. Right, and also you need to know, like, when you work with the project, you know, in statistics, it's important also how you're doing the data collection. Like they say, like whatever you measure is really what you measure, right? So like when you have if you are in discussion, so like you need to think about it. Okay, if you make any type of measurements, you need to make sure that they are reliable, right? Even if you measure, let's say, weight or height, right? So like for the project, when we went to Conafe and we're measuring the kids and the parents, our research assistants, they had to, and they were not the statisticians, but they had to get training that whatever they are measuring is calibrated. So it's like it's not off. So I'm not sure if it answers your question. So mostly, right, your area expertise, like if you're interested in statistics, but of course, if you work with many other projects, you don't become expert in those other topics, but you need to have certain understanding of it. And if you don't know, like if there are certain variables and you're not sure, then of course you ask people. It's lots of back and forth. So it's like, it's not like you're on your own, working on your own, like you meet with people, you talk with people, and yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Badowski.
Sure. If there are no questions, I have a suggestion, if I can have a suggestion. So I know that you guys also like invite the graduates, like former graduates, for the presentation. So maybe you can invite Rodney and Louise. They can, I mean, you can invite them at the same time, because actually I think they are the two people who work the longest with me and on most, like the biggest number of projects, and now they took different directions, right? So as I said, like Rodney is working with the industry and Louise is working with the health data. So maybe I think they give you some like insights, and you can ask them more questions too, like what was their journey and how they got interested and stuff.
Yes, we'd love to feature them.
Okay, I will let them know. And what is I'm kind of advertising for this. What is kind of nice about this job is very flexible, because you know, like once you have the data, we don't even need to meet in. Of course, it's nice to meet in person, but if it's not possible, we don't need to meet in person. Like the previous year, you know, like Rodney was still in Ohio, Dwight was in Washington, Louise was in Chicago. So we were all in different places, and we're still able to work on the project. So that's, I think it's kind of neat.
I have one more question. Sorry, Dr. Badowski.
Sure.
What would be your advice for students that are scared to take the opportunities that like is being presented?
Oh, of course, it would be don't be scared. I mean, many of my students kind of start as a volunteer. So, like, for example, like if they took my statistics class, and if you like it, because if you don't like it, you don't like it. I mean, not everyone needs to like statistics. But many, if you think you like it, just quite often we just ask, oh, you know, I would like to maybe get involved. Like, So just, I can give you like something really, really small to start with. So then you can see, well, do you still like it or not like it? If you still like it, when usually all people who volunteer with me eventually end up having like paid positions. So like if you're afraid to apply for the position if it's open, just start with something small. And then you can, so you get experience, and then also you'd also know whether you like it or not. Because quite often it's not all rosy. Like if with, as I said, like it's more like you do research, you learn stuff, but it's also more like kind of a job, right? So there's certain things that have to be done. And sometimes we need to redo the things because we're working for other, in a sense, we work for other people. So the most recent example, we are working with the Guam cancer data. So the team that works on it, we are preparing like Guam cancer facts and figures. They ask us to the tables and analysis one way. And then they decided, oh, can you redo it? So like recently, Rodney and Luis, they had to redo. So sometimes, you know, like if you're okay with it, but sometimes you need to redo stuff, or like you do the same calculations again, then, you know, it's not always like, quite often you do new things, but sometimes you just need kind of repeat the same stuff. So it's, yeah, you need to be patient too, kind of, and yeah. But yeah, just, yeah, don't be afraid to just ask. So like if you want, like if you're not sure, like you don't want to start big, start with something small. And there is, oh my goodness, I have so many stuff that needs to be done. So like if you ask me, I will always find something for you to do.
Yeah, Dr. Badowski, if
Sure.
there are no more questions, I will stop recording and then we will take a group screenshot if that is okay for everyone.
Okay, so should I stop the?
Yes, please. Thank you.